Hello everybody, it's Mr. Q again. What's up? I hope you guys are staying safe and having fun. Today we are going to talk about one of my favorite games. It's pretty easy to play. Sometimes the scoring can be a little bit complicated, but overall it's a pretty good game to have at home if you have a yard. And more specifically, you need to have a long yard. And we'll talk about that, why, in a little bit. But my favorite game is Horseshoes. Today, we're going to learn all about horseshoes. So, take some notes and let's get started. All right, guys. You'll notice that I'm wearing a hat right now. That's to keep the sun off of me. Because even though Horseshoes doesn't seem like a very strenuous game, you can work up a sweat as you play this game. And if it is very sunny out, there's a chance that you could get heat stroke. So it's important that you protect yourself while outside playing this game. Because as you can see here, very few clouds in the sky today, which means as we play the game, there's a lot of sun on that horseshoe course. So protect yourself when playing horseshoes, wear a hat, drink plenty of water, and you'll be able to have a lot of fun while playing. Horseshoes started in the 1900s. Probably somewhere around 1900. And it consisted of throwing some horseshoes at a little stake in the ground. And over the years, it has changed a bit, including how far apart the little stake should be and the actual rules around how many points you get. In the 1920s, about 1925, they came up with some standardized rules about horseshoes. You can see here that my backyard is all concrete, which is not good for horseshoes, and rock, which also is not very good for horseshoes. So I had to dig out this pit and put sand in there. That way sand is good for horseshoes. Grass is okay for horseshoes as well. So you want sand or you want grass. And of course there's rocks here, so rocks will get kicked into my pit. But I have sand to make it softer and make them stay better where they land instead of landing and then bouncing around everywhere, because that would not be good either, right? So the materials needed to make a course, obviously some wood to make your pit. Some people can use brick, but it's nicer to use a solid piece of wood here, because it's easier on the horseshoes and it's less likely to break if you have a good enough quality piece of wood. As you can see here, I've had to reconstruct my pit a few times because the shoes would break some of the weaker pieces of wood that I put in there. So I've had to reconstruct it. I've had to make the box better. I've had to make this backboard better, make this stronger, add these on. And so finally, I have a court that is pretty decent. The stakes are usually either metal or hard solid plastic. And the horseshoes are the same. They are usually either metal or a hard plastic. The horseshoes usually weigh around 2.5 pounds each, 2.5 pounds. Each, so they're not very light, and so when you throw them, they have some mass behind them, especially these metal ones. So first, let's talk about the pits. the horseshoe pits. These are horseshoes. And this is the pit into which you play horseshoes. Now the pit itself, that little rectangular area there, doesn't have to be a specific size, but it needs to be about 31 to 36 inches across, or 43 to 72 inches long. This one is about 36 inches by 50 inches, give or take. And the stake needs to be 15 inches above the ground, which is different than when it first started because it was only a couple of inches. So the stake can be made of different materials, but it needs to be a strong material because these horseshoes can have a lot of force behind them. So it's important that whatever uses a stake is strong and it won't break. So that's the pit, and there are two pits. If you're short on space, I guess, you only need to have one pit. You just have to keep walking back and forth. But the two pits need to be 40 feet apart. So you can see that's kind of far. And you can see that the pit is exactly the same on this side. All right? You can see Sissy there scouting the area to make sure it's good to throw horseshoes. Isn't that right, Sissy? Oh yeah, I love playing horseshoes. There are two ways to decide who gets to start the game. The first is a coin flip. So you flip a coin, call it, and whoever gets it right gets to start. Or you can each throw a horseshoe, and whoever gets closest to the stake goes first. And then they get to go first for the thing. So whoever gets closest to the stake. So most people just flip a coin, it's easier and faster, and there's not really any preference based on skill. Whereas if you closest to the stake is really skill dependent, and if you're not very good, then obviously you're going to go second. So each person throws both of their horseshoes to the other pit, and then the next person throws their shoes to the other pit. So you throw two shoes, and then your opponent throws two shoes. And if it's just a two-player game, you both walk down there, score it up, and then throw them back down here. If it's a four-person game, you have teams. So two people down here, two people over there, and so these two people will throw, and those people will score, and then they'll throw back. And then these people will score and throw back. And then it basically goes like that. So let's talk about the rules and scoring of horseshoes. First of all, this is a 2 to 4 person game, and if it's two people, they both start at the same on the same side of the pitch. You can throw, it doesn't matter which side of the box you stand on, here or there. I guess it more depends on what hand you are. What's important is you do not cross the front of the box. If you do, that's a foul and your throw does not count. So you can throw anywhere from behind here, but obviously the closer you are, the easier the throw is. So you can come up here and line up. Now, how do you throw it? Well, some people, they like to take a step when they throw. Me personally, I just like to leave my foot there so I know where it is, and then I throw without stepping. It doesn't really matter. You'll notice that the horseshoe has a little lip here. You can use that lip if you like, Some people don't like their shoe to rotate much. They just want to throw it and have it go kind of flat. Other people like to have rotation on it, so they can use that lip to help make it flip. So you pull back on it as you throw it, and then it'll make it flip like this through the air, something like that. That's the basics of how you throw the thing. Of course, you throw it underhanded. You have to throw it underhanded like this. So you either throw it and have it go straight, or you throw it and you have it flip. Okay? So either way are good ways to throw the horseshoe. Doesn't really matter. Here I am throwing some horseshoes. That first throw is a little bit short. Didn't even make it to the box. That's not good. But my second throw, ringer. Hey everybody, it's Patty. I love playing horseshoes, and I want to show you my technique for throwing horseshoes. So I grab it in the middle, as you can see, and then I throw it. So here we go. Woo! Look at that throw. So good. And that's how I throw my horseshoes. So good. So you've thrown the horseshoe. Now what? Right? There's your horseshoe. The question is, did it get any points? Well, the first thing you need to think about is, where are the other horseshoes of your opponent, right? So you can see here these two horseshoes, and usually you need to a horseshoe that is within about 6 or 7 inches. Official rules say 6 inches, but the ends of the horseshoe are about 7 inches. So we're usually a little bit generous in my house, and so basically from that point to that point is about 7 inches. So we just measure and see if it's within that amount of space of the stake, you get a point. So you measure and boom, yep, it's within. So the question is, whose is closer, right? So we measure it, and it looks like this one is closer. So this one would get a point. All right? Now, of course, the point of this game is to get your horseshoe to go around the stake, and that is called a ringer. Okay? So, if you get a ringer, this one doesn't count. Okay? Unless I also have a ringer, then this one will count. But these ringers will cancel each other out. So we each got a ringer, both of those go away. It doesn't matter how close they are. Then we see, are there any others? Is this one also a ringer? If so, that second ringer gets a point. If not, that's okay. Is it within 6 or 7 inches? If so, then that gets a point. So whatever horseshoes are closest gets a point. If you are the only one to get a ringer, then each horseshoe that goes on the stake is 3 points. Every stake that gets leaned on, or horseshoe that leans on the stake or is touching the stake, is 2 points. And every stake horseshoe that's within 6 inches of the stake gets 1 point. Generally speaking, in a backyard game, games go to 21 points. But tournament games are scored a little bit differently, and usually those go up to 40 points. Mainly because they're so good, so they get a lot of ringers. But in the home games, 21 points can be a lot of points that you have to get. So 40 points would be way too many points. Alright guys, let's recap what we talked about today. So, horseshoes started in about the 1900s, and the rules that we use today were mostly created around 1925. And the stakes, which need to be 15 inches out of the ground, are 40 feet apart. And the box that the horseshoes will land in, the horseshoe pit, is between 31 to 36 inches wide and 43 to 72 inches long. And there's not really a strict requirement of what it should be, but as long as it's within that range, it's perfectly fine. So the horseshoes themselves and the stakes can be made out of metal, like mine, or out of a hard plastic. The horseshoes are about 2.5 pounds in weight, so they can be kind of heavy, especially for young children or for older people. And basically, you play this game by flipping a coin to see who can go first, or if you're both very good, you can see who gets closest to the stake and then they go first. Then each person gets to throw both horseshoes to the other pit. So you throw both your shoes, and the next person throws both of their shoes. And then, once they're both have thrown their shoes, you will go down to that pit and you score it up. If you get a ringer, which means that the horseshoe has got the stake between it, then that is 3 points. If your horseshoe is touching or leaning on the stake, you get 2 points. And whoever has the closest horseshoes within 6 inches, and in my court it's about 6 to 7 inches, then they get a point. But if there are a horseshoe from each team, then those horseshoes cancel out and nobody gets a point. Unless there's 2 horseshoes and 1 horseshoe that is a ringer, then one of each of the horseshoes cancels out and the one that's left gets the points. And then whatever horseshoe is closest gets a point. So, like I said, there are many house rules and variations to the game, but that's what we like to use at where I live and where we play here. And basically we play to 21. So normally a tournament game might be to 40 points, which is a lot of points, especially if you're not very good. so we just play to 21 points. Or if we want a super fast game, a much faster game, we might play to 11 points. The homework that I want you guys to do today is to think about your favorite outdoor game. If you have no outdoor game, that's okay. Just tell me about your favorite game. All right? Tell me what it looks like. Tell me the rules. Tell me why you like to play it. All right? So, write down at least 10 sentences about your favorite game, and then share it with your classmate. All right, guys, that's it for me today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.